In this video, I'm going to show you what I did to glow up from this to this and how I improved my skin quality, facial leanness, recessed chin, and eye area. Before getting started, this video is not medical advice and I'm just sharing my personal experience for educational and entertainment purposes only. Beginning with skin quality, the first adjustment I made was adding in skin boosting peptides. Peptides are short chains of amino acids that provide directions for biological processes. Of these, the copper peptide GHKCU is the most well known for its skin-enhancing properties, including boosting the production of collagen, elastin, hyaluronic acid, and its wound repair and anti-inflammatory properties. I injected about 2.5 milligrams of GHKCU on 80% of days with another 3 to 4 milligrams of AHKCU, a related copper peptide, on 50% of days. I used GHKCU because it's well known to benefit the skin and also mixed in AHKCU just in case it had extra hair boosting benefits. Additionally, I injected 1200 milligrams of glutathione a week, the body's master antioxidant and peptide which helps brighten and even the skin tone. I also used 50 milligrams of NAD+ a day, which is a cofactor vital for mitochondria and cellular respiration that helps skin cell turnover and repair. During this time, I also consistently used topical peptides, growth factors, and exosomes, with products including the Skin Medica TNS Advanced Serum, Plated Intense Serum, and Niad Copper Amino Isolate. I used other skincare actives as well, including retinoids, vitamin C, and azelaic acid, but I've already done so for years, so these probably didn't contribute to much recent change. Here are my before and after photos. For comparison's sake, I'm not focusing on hair at all since I'm still recovering from a hair transplant. Just focusing on skin quality, I do think there's a subtle improvement in dullness and glow. More noticeable is that there's slightly less hyperpigmented brown and red spots around my face. Anecdotally, I do think my skin is overall much softer, hydrated, and resilient, so while the skin quality improvement is subtle, I think it's definitely there, and I get lots of compliments on my skin from women and whenever I see my dermatologist or esthetician. Next is improving facial leanness. For this, there's really no way around the fact that leanness comes from losing fat in the lower face, and as you've probably heard by now, lean is king for having defined and sculpted face and jaw. However, there's definitely things to aid in fat loss on top of good diet and exercise. I use a variety of peptides and medications to help with body recomposition in order to lose fat while either preserving or gaining muscle. The first was utilizing retatrutide at 2.5 milligrams a week. At this low of a dose, I didn't feel much of its effect mentally, and it was more about stacking it in combination with the other peptides I took to initiate fat loss from every pathway. Next was 250 micrograms of CJC 1295 Nodac and 250 micrograms of ipamorelin a day, with 0.5 milligrams of tesamorelin mixed in on a quarter of days. Utilizing this combination, I was able to boost my growth hormone and in response my IGF-1 levels from 151 nanograms per milliliter to 197 nanograms per milliliter, which helps increase fat burn. Next was optimizing my mitochondrial function, which involved using 10 milligrams of MOTS-C a week combined with 2 milligrams of SS31 a day. MOTS-C in particular activates the AMPK pathway, which promotes fat oxidation and burning. SS31 helps protect mitochondrial membranes from oxidative stress and damage to make sure it can continue burning that fat. One thing I was careful with about MOTS-C was to use it away from my workouts. Even though you commonly see it used as a pre-workout before the gym, which is a mistake I also made, MOTS-C through the AMPK pathway actually blunts mTOR signaling, which is what causes muscle growth from exercise, and so taking a pre-workout actually makes your muscle gain worse overall. Since cardio activates AMPK though, using MOTS-C before cardio sessions is helpful and synergistic. Even though it's not a peptide, I also added in 3.125 milligrams of enclomiphene per day to boost my free testosterone just above the reference range to help with anabolism and body recomposition. Next, I injected 500 milligrams of L-carnitine a day, which helps move fatty acids into mitochondria to be burned for energy. I chose injectable L-carnitine over oral supplementation because oral bioavailability is poor and injectable administration bypasses the harmful effect of L-carnitine producing TMAO in the gut. TMAO is a bacterial byproduct that is associated with decreased cardiovascular health. The downside is that these injections are much less pleasant than peptides, must be administered deeper due to the higher liquid volumes, and leaves the site area quite sore on top of requiring a daily injection. Finally, I injected fat dissolvers composed of phosphatidylcholine and deoxycholic acid underneath my jaw and in the under chin area to target fat loss in the area. I performed the injections at night, and they did leave the area quite sore and slightly puffy initially, but always disappeared by the next morning. As a result of these interventions, I predictably lost weight, but only at a rate of 1 pound a month, going from around 173 pounds to 168 pounds a day. The slowest weight loss possible is ideal for preserving muscle and strength, so I was happy with the subtle loss. However, looking at the before and after of my face, the difference in facial leanness is not subtle at all and is one of the biggest differences I notice now. My lower face is much more angular and cheeks look much less puffy. In the comparison photos in my side profile, unfortunately not all of them were taken from the same angle, but as an overall theme, I do see an evolution in the increased leanness and definition of my jawline. However, I've only been using the fat dissolvers under the chin for the last 3 months in only 25 milliliters of total solution, which is reflected from the third photo onwards. Photo-wise, it's very difficult to notice much difference, but that's also because I was already starting from a fairly low body fat percentage. Going forward, I will try to focus the fat dissolver more behind the ramus than directly under the chin. Third is improving my recessed chin, which has had the biggest impact on my glow up and appearance. I've always suffered from a slightly recessed chin and lower cheekbones on my left side. To fix this, I received about 1.5 syringes of Radiesse into my chin and half into my left cheekbone. Although commonly lumped in with fillers and having a filler-like effect, Radiesse is better described as a biostimulator that stimulates your body's own collagen production wherever it is injected. Radiesse is composed of calcium hydroxylapatite microspheres in a gel that act as a scaffold for your body's own collagen to build onto, creating volume. The microspheres are metabolized by your body over time, leaving behind just the collagen created, although the effect is temporary and lasts about a year. Because it utilizes your body's natural production of collagen to create volume, it typically looks more natural and it doesn't migrate. It should not be confused with typical hyaluronic acid fillers that add volume directly using the gel and have higher risks of looking unnatural from unskilled placement or filler migration. Sculpture is another alternative to Radiesse in the US and is used for softer areas of the face, typically like the mid-face. Looking at the before and after, the raised cheekbone is fairly subtle, but the increased chin protrusion is immediately noticeable and also tightens the jawline slightly. I would say Radiesse created a massive difference in my side profile attractiveness and facial harmony, and I added an additional half a syringe in my cheek and chin a few months after. And just as a note for my prior face comparison photos, the leanness comparison photos were both post-Radiesse, so this didn't contribute to the narrowing of the face. Finally is improving my eye area. Admittedly, this area is fairly hard to improve without surgery or more invasive treatments. The first thing I got was a lower blepharoplasty, which is a procedure that removes fat that protrudes out of your orbital sockets. This fat results in puffiness or extremely heavy-looking eye bags around the eyes. Note that this protruding orbital fat that typically sits here is different from the fat that prevents hollowness around the eyes, and that it's entirely possible to have both excess orbital fat as well as hollows from the lack of fat. Here you can see my before and after, and there's been a huge difference in making my eyes appear larger, less tired looking, and less puffy. However, I do think one negative that's appeared is that there's increased vascular show around my eyes. Since there's less puffiness now, the thickness of skin right underneath my lash line has also decreased, resulting in more blood vessel coloring showing through, which still gives some of that tired looking effect. As you can see though, even though the puffiness from excess fat has been removed, I still have grooves that indicate under eye hollowness. To address this, you can either treat it immediately with under-eye hyaluronic acid filler or go to the biostimulatory route to stimulate your body's own natural collagen production. The filler route is temporary and risky, and so I went with biostimulatory methods. In this first before and after, I got under-eye platelet-rich fibrin or PRF treatment. PRF is similar to PRP and concentrates the natural growth factors in your own blood and injects it into an area to stimulate growth and collagen production. The additional fibrin in PRF acts as additional scaffolding that triggers a slow release of growth factors instead of a burst all at once like PRP, resulting in better regeneration over time. There's also a version of PRF called Easy Gel that has an additional volumizing effect utilizing PRF, but I chose a non-Easy Gel version for reasons that I'll explain later. Immediately, you can notice that there are less shadows under my eyes as some of the hollowness has been filled by stimulated growth. A few weeks later, I placed a syringe of Genetic PN Pro, a polynucleotide plus hyaluronic acid skin booster product, underneath my eyes using a cannula in the subdermal layer of my face. Cannulas are flexible, blunt metal appendages that dispense liquid just like a needle, but because the tip is blunt, it won't pierce blood vessels or cause bleeding as it slides underneath skin. Although skin boosters are normally injected with needles into the dermis or top layer of the skin in order to improve skin quality, I chose to place it deeper with a cannula in order to stimulate volume underneath the skin and to avoid the bruising and downtime that comes with dozens of needle pokes on the face. Even though PN Pro contains hyaluronic acid, it does not act like hyaluronic acid-based fillers because the filler HA is cross-linked, meaning it resists absorption by the skin, whereas the HA I use is non-cross-linked, which means the HA is absorbed quickly by the skin as it hydrates and stimulates the area. I was actually super impressed with the results of the polynucleotides and the HA in the area. Although the PRF may have still been working, the combination of the PN and HA also resulted in additional volume and collagen stimulation that wiped out a lot of my noticeable under-eye hollowness and grooves. After a second polynucleotide and HA treatment a couple weeks later, there was again noticeable improvement. Going forward, there's still several things I'd like to improve upon my eye area. Even though the skin booster injections were working well to address my dark circles and results typically last several months, I want a more permanent solution, so I'm planning to do under-eye fat grafting into my hollows and right underneath my lash line in order to remove the grooves and decrease the vascular show-through. This is why I did not want the easy gel and will stop my skin booster treatments temporarily. I want the true hollowness to show through when the surgeon decides how much fat to place into my under-eye area when I get surgery in a few more months. At the same time, I'm also planning to do a ptosis correction surgery to restore symmetry in my eyes. Currently, my left eyelid droops and covers more of my eye compared to my right eye, resulting in a tired and asymmetrical look. To compensate, I've been using Upneek eye drops to balance my eyes, but once again, I'm looking for a more permanent solution. As I undertake that journey, I'll be sure to keep you all updated. In the meantime, if you like this video and learned something, please consider liking and subscribing and checking out my other videos.